Shalom. This week's Sedra is Sedra Emor. Just a few weeks ago, we observed the festival of Pesach. During Pesach, we spent 7 days recounting the Exodus from Egypt. On the Seder night, we spent hours delving into the details of the Exodus and its significance. Remembering the Exodus from Egypt isn't only obligatory on Pesach. Twice a day, every day, we are commanded to remember the Exodus from Egypt when we recite the Shema. In this week's Torah portion, the Exodus from Egypt is mentioned by God in a curious context. God commanded, "You shall not profane my sanctified name, that I may be sanctified in the midst of the Jewish people. I am God who sanctifies you. I am God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am God." In his commentary to these psukim, Ramban wrote, "According to the opinion of our rabbis, when it states, 'and I will be sanctified,' it means, 'be ready to die and sanctify my name.' That this is a command that constitutes one of the 613 commandments. The command is to sanctify God's name by observing the commandments, and that under certain circumstances, we submit to death rather than transgress them. Sanctifying God's name and not desecrating it are mitzvos that should stand alone. Yet, in our Torah portion, God ends the command by including, 'I am God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am God.' The command to sanctify God's name doesn't seem to have anything to do with the Exodus from Egypt. So why does God connect the two together in this week's parsha? In his explanation to this pasuk, Ramban wrote, "This is the explanation of the following verse: that brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God, which is a reason, including all the commandments, meaning that it is fitting for the Jewish people to sanctify his name because we are his servants whom he has redeemed from Egypt." Ramban understood the Exodus from Egypt to be the reason Jews should sanctify God's name. In a totally different direction, the Sforno wrote, "I have become your immediate leader, not employing any intermediaries, just as I am the immediate leader for metaphysical beings like angels." Of course, this was based on the premise that the Jewish people will walk in the path of my sanctity, as mentioned by Yirmiyahu the prophet. "Do not learn the ways of the nations, and do not be in awe of the signs you believe to see in the sky." The Sforno understood the Exodus from Egypt as God's act to become the leader of the Jewish people, and therefore the Jews should sanctify their leader's name. The two different explanations of the Ramban and Sforno about the connection between the mitzvah to sanctify God's name and the Exodus from Egypt teach us two important lessons. To the Ramban, who understood the Exodus from Egypt to be the reason the Jews should sanctify God's name, we learn that the Exodus was a seminal moment in the Jewish people's relationship with God, and our responsibility is to sanctify God's name. To the Sforno, who understood the Exodus from Egypt as God's act to become the leader of the Jewish people, the Exodus showed God's unique providential relationship with the Jewish people. The lesson we learn is that the Exodus was God's first providential act towards the Jewish people. Ramban understood the Exodus as an event the Jewish people should use to approach God, while Sforno understood it as an event where God demonstrated his power to the Jewish people. The lesson of both is that the Jewish people should react by acting in a manner that sanctifies God's name. That is the true lesson of this week's Torah portion. Shabbat Shalom. What a powerful message to take home to our daily lives.